Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Time for another viewer question, and this one's actually a follow-up to another video that I've already done based off of viewer question. So a little while back I had someone ask about the possibility of 4th edition D&D going up in value, and wondering what the chances of that were and things along those lines. And so I did that video, and I enjoyed making that video, but recently I had someone inquire along those same lines for 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and wondering if I think that it may start to go up in price or collectability. And I actually kind of thought about it because it's sort of an interesting question, and I believe I responded to them just through the YouTube video. But at the same time, I kind of want to do a video about it because it's sort of an interesting topic as far as I'm concerned. So 2nd edition is kind of interesting in that it's one of those versions of the game that a lot of people would argue was not the most beloved or, revered version of the game. I mean, generally speaking, when people talk about old school D&D, they're either referring to, OD&D, the basic rule set, or 1st edition AD&D. When you have people talking about, the modern era, they typically start with 3rd edition and going from there. So 2nd edition is kind of just left in this weird spot. It doesn't have the ill will or, the consumer backlash that, say, 4th edition certainly suffered from, and the controversy that surrounds it. But 2nd edition just doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, or at least not by, channels that focus on D&D as a whole. And there may be some specialty channels that focus primarily on it on YouTube or, web forums, stuff like that. But by and large, 2nd edition kind of feels like it's just been forgotten about and left behind, which is a bit of a shame because it is a really fun version of the game to play. I mean, it's where I broke into D&D, and that's where I want to kind of start. So so first of all, yes, I think that 2nd edition AD&D is going to slowly start becoming more and more sought after or popular. It's not going to reach the levels of 1st edition AD&D. It's not going to reach the levels of, the D&D like Rule Cyclopedia or the basic rule sets. And it's not going to, it's just not going to reach those points. So if you're looking to, make investment into 2nd edition now, hoping to sell it for large profits later, then that's probably not going to happen. But realistically, there's going to start to be an increase in demand, I think, as time goes on. And in my opinion, there's really going to be 3 different types of people that are going to be looking for 2nd edition AD&D stuff. People that are not going to be looking for it are individuals who, well, maybe 4 different types, but there's the people who I know, for example, who started with 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, had 0 interest in purchasing anything for 2nd edition. And that's 100% of the people I know personally that were playing D&D prior to the release of 2nd edition. 100% of them passed on it and either stayed with 1st or moved on to other games and then kind of got back into it with 3rd edition. And that's sort of a common story. Now, that's not to say that 2nd edition was by any means a failure, but in a way it kind of, I guess maybe in a way it kind of was. The company that owned it went bankrupt while this version of the game was out, so it certainly wasn't able to save the company, unfortunately. So there's that little bit of history there, but for those people, they're just not interested, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So your old school gamers from the earliest days of D&D's history probably aren't going to get the itch to pick up 2nd edition. So for those people, it's not worth, trying to market towards them at all. The people that I think are interested in going back and learning about 2nd edition AD&D are going to be people like myself who, as I said earlier, broke into Dungeons & Dragons with 2nd edition. So that's where I started, and that's where I know a lot of people started, and there's going to be that sort of nostalgia bug. It's kind of like how, NES games became really popular to collect back in the, early 2000s, and, well, obviously still to this day. It was people that played them as a kid, grew up into adults, had, the disposable income to start buying these things, and went back and wanted to start, collecting. Now, it's never going to reach that point, and I don't think Dungeons & Dragons is ever going to reach the levels of collectability that things like old school Nintendo games are, so don't try to say that that's what I'm indicating. But you've got people that started with 2nd edition, they played it on the weekends after school, or, we played it down in the basement of our school. One of the teachers would let us into an unused classroom, or there was a little spot, this little alcove where the elevator came out of. So, and you kind of look back on that now, in my mid-30s, I look back at that and I remember it really fondly. And I kind of miss, those days of dealing with THAC0 and, just really not playing the game very well at all. But I kind of miss that. So, recently I started kind of getting the itch to go back and pick up some second edition stuff. And I showed it off in some pickup videos. I picked up all 3 of the Player's Options books, and there's a few other things that I'd like to get. So I kind of want to go back and start collecting some second edition stuff once again. So that's one type of person. The other type of person that I know or think has a strong chance of wanting to continue to expand their collection of second edition AD&D stuff are younger people that were simply given their second edition books by like a relative. So a while ago, when I had mentioned something about second edition AD&D not being very successful or popular, I think popular was the word that I used. I actually had someone contact me, and they were in their early 20s, and they said that they loved second edition, and all of their friends that play D&D all loved second edition. And I just thought that was kind of weird. It's like, you're awfully young to be, playing that version of the game. And he said, well, I think it was his uncle. It was either his uncle or his father. But he's like, I expressed an interest in it, and he just gave me a bunch of books, that he wasn't using. And that's what it was. It was second edition. And it seems like second edition is the most common edition that I've heard of people giving away. So, not that it's a bad version of the game, but I just don't think that had the emotional attachment of first edition or even third edition afterwards. So there's those individuals who received a bunch of second edition stuff from a relative, and they like the system, they learn the system, and they want to keep it going. So they're going to start to look and pick up some other books, which is really cool. The third type of individual that I think might be interested in going back and getting second edition stuff are actually those relatives who have given away their second edition AD&D things. For example, if, this uncle starts playing some games with his nephew who he gave these books to, he may start to get that itch to, either want to run second edition AD&D himself, or at least have his own player's handbook. And you may see, player's handbook, inquiries or sales or stuff like that start to increase. So I don't think those individuals are going to go crazy and buy a whole bunch of stuff, but at least your core rule books, and if nothing else, your player's handbook, might start to become a very popular commodity. And the fourth type of individual that might be interested in going back and starting to collect for second edition AD&D are people who are new to, say, 5th edition and want to simply explore D&D's past. And, they may go on places like eBay, for example, to look up, see if they can get some core books from older editions. And they're probably going to find that the second edition books are among the cheaper ones to get. And that may spark their interest and kind of go from there. So yeah, I think it's something that's going to happen. As far as overall prices go, I don't think it's going to go through the roof. You may have, again, a book that went for $10 to $15, might get up to $25 to $30. It's really hard to say, but I don't think you're going to see, $50 players handbooks or anything like that anytime soon. It is also worth noting that second edition AD&D was reprinted back in 2013 by Wizards of the Coast. They have green covers on them, and I've shown them off in a couple of my videos. I picked up the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide because I already had the Monsters Compendium binder and another monster manual, so I really didn't need a third one of those. And so some bookstores or some distributors may still have surplus of those books in stock because it wasn't a really hot seller, and unfortunately I feel like those second edition reprints may have kind of killed the idea for doing much more in the way of reprints after that. I don't think there were very many things that have been reprinted from that point forward. In fact, I think the Magic Item Compendium for 3.5 D&D was the last thing to be reprinted at a point in time in which they were, kind of reprinting a bunch of stuff. So there's still the possibility that you can get a brand new Player's Handbook or Dungeon Master's Guide with that green cover from Wizards of the Coast. So it is certainly out there. I think this is probably, if you're interested or considering the idea of trying to collect second edition AD&D, this might be the opportune time to do so before it starts to really kind of go up. Just as sort of an idea to, show that there has been some increase. Back about 3 or 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to buy the Player's Options books from a store. They had all three of them there, and they were $10 for the Player's Options Skills and Power, Combat and Tactics, and then the Spells and Magic was $15. And I passed at the time because it's like, it's cool, and I remember, a player in my D&D game was using the Skills and Power book and was absolutely gross and ridiculously powered. But it's just like, I'm not going to use them, so I passed. And just this past year, I kind of got the itch to really go after those books. I had talked about them a couple of times in videos, and I hated the fact that I couldn't show them when I was talking about them. So I found them again, and the prices had increased from $10 to $15 to $15 to $25. So the two books that were $10 I got for around $15 a piece, and the one that was $15, the Spells and Magic, that was $25. So those have already gone up in price. Now, there are some things for second edition that have always been really popular among collectors and have always been kind of expensive, and that's the campaign setting box sets. Specifically, anything Forgotten Realms and anything Planescape. Those two were sort of like the big ones as far as popularity goes. Planescape boxes look absolutely fantastic. They tend to have like these, sort of like a rainbow of colors. They're very nice, bright and colorful, and they look fantastic on a shelf. I wish I had them, but those things are really expensive nowadays. So those have always sort of, held their value, and box sets generally tend to do that anyway. But I think you may start to see an increase in things like the core rule books, because those will be the first things that people will be interested in. Maybe the Player's Options book, and any of those complete books that are out there, like the Complete Book of Elves, Complete Book of Dwarves. There's just all kinds of books along those lines that I think have the potential to become very popular. They had them for the races, they had them for all the classes, and they're really great books. So again, that's something that you may start to see. There's also like the Legends and Lore book, which is their version of Deities and Demigods. And so those are the things that I think, you may want to start looking out for. Another thing that I've noticed is that it's actually starting to get harder and harder to find used second edition AD&D books anywhere. It used to be, in my experiences anyway, and that's living here in Nova Scotia, Canada, that typically any game store that I would go into that had used D&D stuff would generally have at least a few second edition AD&D books kicking around. Because again, a lot of people, when third edition came out, just said, here, take this stuff and give me the credit for it and I'll buy the new stuff. So it used to be really easy to find second edition AD&D books. Now, it's really hard to find them. The store where I bought my Player's Options books from had a bunch of other second edition AD&D stuff there as well. And those were the only three books that I bought. And those other ones had been sitting around for a while. And now they're all gone. I want to say they may have one or two second edition AD&D books there, but the last time I was there, most of the stuff that I had seen was gone. And there was like a book of magic items and artifacts. There was a lot of really cool stuff that they had there that was just all gone. So if you are looking to collect, or you're thinking that you may want to start collecting second edition AD&D, this is probably the best time to do it. If not, maybe a year or so ago was probably the best time. But it's still a good opportunity to sort of get in before things start to get slightly more expensive. Like I said, I don't think it's going to double or triple in prices for most things. I think you're probably looking at maybe about a 25 to 30% increase in prices for a lot of stuff. And if it gets really, really popular and all of a sudden it becomes the new craze and everybody wants it, then it may start to go up. But I think you're looking at sort of modest increases, but there's still going to be a few increases. So if you are looking to collect now, like I said, it's a perfect opportunity to do so. As sort of just a additional part to this video, since I'm talking about second edition anyway, I also had somebody ask me if I feel like they're going to make the second edition AD&D core rulebooks available through DM's Guild Drive-Thru-RPG with their print-on-demand service. So at this point, I want to say they're going to at some point. I don't know exactly when, but it just seems like the logical thing to do. I mean, they had the first edition AD&D rulebooks, and they are the reprints that are available. And they did the Rule Cyclopedia, So I think it's only a matter of time before they do the second edition AD&D books. That said, a matter of time could be months, it could be years. So if anyone's watching this video and would be interested in ordering print-on-demand books for second edition AD&D from DM's Guild or Drive-Thru RPG, my recommendation would be to contact them. They do have contact information. You can send them messages or stuff like that, and just express an interest in having that available, because if they don't have people asking about it, they may not feel the need to do it. Now, if they do end up making a print-on-demand version of those core rulebooks, I think it's important that people understand that it's most likely going to be based off the 2013 reprints. So they would have most likely those green covers, because the first edition AD&D reprints or print-on-demands are based off of the reprints that Wizards of the Coast did back in 2011, I think it was, 2011, 2012. So I think those are the ones that you're going to get. So if you're looking for the original ones that came out in '89, you're probably not going to get those. But if you're interested in it, contact them and just let them know, because if they get enough people saying, hey, we're interested in getting second edition AD&D core books, then they, will be more inclined to actually do so. So anyway, those are just sort of my thoughts on that subject, but let me know what your experiences are. Do you have local game stores in your area? Have you noticed that second edition books have become harder and harder to find, or are they becoming easier to find where you are? Have you noticed a change in the price, either positive or negative? Like, has it been going up, or have some places just been trying to get rid of it and decreasing their prices? So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. And if you have any other questions that you want me to answer on video, please don't hesitate to ask. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.